Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Rolka. I want to thank you for checking out my video. Bill Gates, I believe, said that many of us overestimate what we can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what we can achieve in 10. And to that I would add the words of Benjamin Franklin, which were, if you fail to plan, then you in fact plan to fail. I'm paraphrasing, of course, adding a few words in there, but that's the idea. Fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's times like this time of year specifically, for those of you who are watching this upon its release, this is December 26th, 2020, and I hope that those of you who are watching this in real time, not in real time, but at the time of the release, have had a wonderful holiday season, a wonderful Christmas or Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you might celebrate. I hope that you've had a wonderful time. It has been a trying year with the pandemic, and though hope is on the horizon, I would encourage all of you to stay safe, wash your hands, and do what is appropriate for the region of the world that you happen to be in. But it's times like this that I myself am given to some reflection, and I think about the upcoming year and the things that I might like to achieve. And so while I actually had a chordal-based warm-up that was going to be like very chill, scheduled for release today, I'm going to push that back a week, and we'll get started with that in the new year. And what I would like to impress upon you that while I am not one to advocate for New Year resolutions or anything like that, you know, if the time is kind of right to reflect upon these things and the energy is in the air, maybe it's not a bad time to give some thoughts to lifestyle or musical practice changes that you might want to incorporate into your musical world in the coming year. Music, like so many things in life, requires a lot of patience. But if you have that patience and you can do a little bit of work over a long period of time, it will compound on itself in a very gratifying manner. You will in fact not only be learning, but you will be learning how to learn more quickly, and it will expedite all of the musical endeavors that you might entertain in your musical world. There's a few general ideas that I'd like to throw out to you to think about, to consider in this new year. And again, none of them are meant to be taken on and necessarily completed. It's mostly just to get started. First and foremost, I would pose the question of whether or not you read music. True, there have been many people who don't read music and have done particularly well, but it is a very important tool that, if added to your tool chest, can differentiate you from amongst other singers, vocalists in auditions. It can help in the preparation of material. It can help you decide about the production aspects of the material that you might be choosing to sing. For example, if you can quickly look at the chart and map the melody that you see onto your range, you can quickly determine what the registration event requirements might be, what the overall range and how it fits to your voice, whether it's appropriate or a key change might be a better idea. Also, just to be able to better differentiate the vibe. Sometimes, even if you have the range, it could be better to change the key to serve the vibe of the song. Solfege is another very, very small daily practice that I would suggest you consider. That's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do, ti, la, sol, la, ti, do. That's those solfege syllables. Now I use the movable do system, so whatever key I happen to be in, the tonic is do. And what this does is it trains you for relative pitch. And there are lots of programs that you can get involved in that exist out in the world that will help you practice relative pitch. However, even if you just did your vocalizations with solfege syllables for a few minutes every day, you would see some very satisfying results in the not terribly distant future. For those that struggle with intonation, solfege can help with that. If you struggle with finding harmony parts, or you struggle with staying on your harmony part, in other words, you start a part but then you gravitate towards the lead vocal or something to that effect, solfege can help you with that as well. It is another tool in our tool chest that makes objective some aspects of music which can often seem very ephemeral. And of course, both of these things fall somewhat under the canopy of music theory. Music theory is the underpinnings, how all of this stuff gets put together. And if you can begin to learn that many things in music are very relative as how they relate to one another, then again, you can have more input on the production of your music, appropriateness of keys as it relates to melodies, and even more to that. And as you get more fancy, you might find that you can start to suggest other chord changes to integrate into the harmonization of melodies that can kind of spice it up a bit, make it more your own. Speaking specifically about singing, not as if these things aren't singing related, of course, because they certainly are. I have, of course, my handy stack of books here. I'm very fond of recommending the structure of singing because it's, generally speaking, very easy to find. It's fairly universally applicable, which is to say that the bass baritone vocalist can learn from it as well as the soprano. And it's inexpensive, unlike a lot of Richard Miller's other books, which many of which are out of print. They can be very, very pricey. The structure of singing is usually very readily found. It is generally very inexpensive. And it can inform you to aspects about your singing, your voice, or your performances that are perhaps outside of your immediate awareness, that you are not yet critically aware of, such that you can take stock of them and work upon them to improve them. It may be that up till now you have not been able to have a very regular, dedicated practice for your voice. Finding the time to vocalize, in addition to whatever it is that you might be singing, would be an excellent habit to work on forming in this new period of time that will again serve you big dividends as you move forward with your music, with your singing. To that end, and again, I have these aren't like, I don't have like sponsorships by these books. I'm just referring them because I found them very useful. Atomic Habits, I think it's James Clear, yes, Atomic Habits. Talks about the process of building habits, how we form them, how we can perpetuate them, how we can circumvent old habits so that we can replace them with new productive habits. If you have not been able to maintain a daily or at the very least regular vocalization practice, looking into why might be part of what would help you to do that moving forward from here. Put all of these things together and they start to accrue big dividends. Acuity in your listening, acuity in your pitch and how you sing. Easy to expect when you start to work on understanding written music, working on solfege, creating a daily habit of practice. Pattern recognitions, so that when you see a pattern and you see it again, but in a different key, you know that pattern. This is one of those things that I talked about earlier where I said that you will be learning to learn faster. This somewhat falls under the category of reading music, but it also falls under the category of music theory. Music is made up of patterns. the more that you can recognize them, the more that I believe you will understand them. And that means that you won't be relearning something again and again and again. You will see it, you will know it for what it is, and then you can start to take a look at the much bigger picture of the music that you might be creating at that time. For those of you that are in the business of music or wish to be in the business of music, the most recent book that I've read, and I've talked about it before, again, no sponsorships here, is How to Make It in the New Music Business by Ari Herstand. And I've mentioned this book before. It talks a lot about streaming services, but it also talks a lot about the fundamentals of what have been in place for musicians for a long time, which is to say, playing, writing, and producing your music. Gigging this past year has obviously not been so much on the table, not nearly so much as it has been in the past. But it will be in the future, and being able to take the most advantage of those gigs, as well as other kinds of gigs, such as licensing and production, or production music even, is talked about in that book. Those are very, very good ways for working musicians to have an income stream here, an income stream here, an income stream here, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, you are in fact a working musician making a living doing those things. It is certainly not easy, but I think that in the book he goes through a variety of avenues in very great detail and can at least give you an idea of how you might approach those things. Might also be the time that you spend a little time with a DAW or digital audio workstation. It makes it a little bit easier and cost-effective for you as an artist to continue to create, produce, and release your material. If every time you want to record a song, it costs you $5,000, that is going to be somewhat prohibiting. On the other hand, most DAW systems can be had for a lot less than that. And with a little bit of patience and a little bit of time, you can very quickly start to create your own demo recordings. This will inform your recording process, which you can refine and expand upon. And before too long, you can in fact be working towards producing your own material. To that end, and I do love suggesting books because I feel like there's so much information. I don't know that I've talked about this book before. Now, if you don't like the Beatles, hang on for a second because the Beatles here are just the vehicle for the information. This book is the complete recording sessions of the Beatles 1962 to 1970. It is super geek-alicious. And in that, I mean what you will find in this book when you open it up, and I don't know how well you'll see that there, are effectively track sheets. So what Mark Lewisham has done here, Mark Lewison, my mistake. What Mark Lewison has done here is detailed the day, who was in what studio, what they recorded, and how it all went down to the best of their recollection. This is important, in my opinion, because it very clearly shows us that oftentimes what was happening in those sessions was the process of elimination and trial and error and continuing to go at a part, whether it was a bass line or a rhythm guitar track or a solo or whatever, until it was right, and not stopping until it was right. Rarely was what they recorded the first time what stayed. It was gone through, gone over, redone if necessary, remixed, worked over until it was right. And lastly, I'm very lucky to have an individual, and I don't I don't name my sponsors all that much. I think of this individual as a patron more than a sponsor. They very generously send me books on vocal technique, in this case about Caruso and his methods and some stories about him. And I find them incredibly, incredibly helpful and thoughtful, and it is my intention this year to incorporate a lot of new aspects to some of the videos that I do as taken from these books. But in finally wrapping up this video here, I'd like to leave you with this reflection on Caruso from the book. So if you'll indulge me for a moment here. There are still a few intimates who remember that Caruso began with a voice which was by no means the miracle that for more than a quarter of a century packed the opera houses of New York, Buenos Aires, Havana, and Mexico, to say nothing of occasional engagements in London, Berlin, Paris, and elsewhere on the continent. The miracle to which we are now referring is the phenomenal vocal capacity which even the public that recognized the wide scope of his song art took for granted. It cannot be doubted, of course, that Caruso had been provided by nature with a remarkable vocal instrument and with a powerful pair of bellows. Nevertheless, we know from our long association with the great artist, and Caruso himself often expressed his own conviction of the fact, that it was his genius for work which made the utmost of his endowment, both as regards the physical organs and those native emotional and mental resources upon which his final artistry drew so heavily. Work does not mean unguided labor. Nothing could be more ruinous to the vocal organism. To the genuine artist, work can only mean intelligent direction, painstaking study, and infinite patience. These are the quintessential elements in any enduring success. And I would suggest to you that that is also a very good place to begin in recognizing that our artistry is not so much what we are given, but what we learn to do and how we learn to apply ourselves to the practice. That the practice, as humble as it may begin, will compound on itself over time and deliver you to the level of artistry, that to which you choose to aspire. So it's all out there for you. If it begins with a little bit of reading music, a little bit of music theory, and a little bit of solfege, then that's a good place to begin. If it is in fact expanding upon your registration event practice, that is a good place to begin too. Plan now, plan well. Think about the first year that is ahead of you, but also the long-term prospects of where these efforts may take you. And as always, I wish you the absolute best. Take really good care of your voices. Enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.